So now we're going to move into the afternoon keynote presentation. The Nebraska 21st Century program has been working with a team at Harvard University for the past 4 years. Dr. Stephanie Jones is the Gerald S. Lesser Professor in Child Development and Education and Director of the EASL Lab at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Her research, anchored in prevention science, focuses on the effects of poverty and exposure to violence on social, emotional, and behavioral development from early childhood through early adolescence. Her research is published in academic and educational journals as well as in trade publications, and she regularly presents her work to national academic and practitioner audiences. We're privileged to have you join us today, Stephanie, for your address, Leveraging the Power of Play in After School to Build Skills for Learning in Life. Join me in welcoming Stephanie Jones.
I always make a joke at this point because my title is the Gerald S. Lesser Professor, and my father, who is also a professor, likes to call me the Lesser Professor. So it's always hilarious when I hear it. So thank you very much for having me. I'm so glad to be here. I am so grateful for being invited, and as Jan said, we've been working with many of you in the state for the last 5 years. I'm here with my colleague, Laura Stickle, whom many of you know, and it has just been a true honor and kind of thrilling part of my career to do this work with you. And I'm going to come back to some of that work specifically in a moment. So I made a plan for these 30-ish minutes. I have to say, it was tough to fit everything I wanted to say into 30 minutes, so I'm going to talk a little fast. And what I'm going to do is really talk about all of those core non-academic skills that I would say drive human development. And we're calling them skills for learning in life, but we know that they are called many different things in many different places. And what I'm going to do is talk about the science behind them. So what are the skills actually? What's the evidence? So what do we know about them? I'm going to talk about effective practice, like what makes effective practice in all the places where children learn and grow. So how can we really support the development of these skills? And then I'll introduce this partnership that we've got going and that is about to start a whole new phase that's going to go for the next 4 years. So, but first, this is where it gets tight on time. I just wanted to start with something a little more fun and completely related to the practice of supporting skills for learning in life. And this is called a feelings map. And one thing we've learned over time for all of us, children and adults, in all settings, in all of the work that we do, that when we look inside and get a read on our feelings, both the feelings that we have in the moment and the ones that we hope to have in the future, even that we hope to have at the end of this presentation, it helps us better understand ourselves and then manage our behavior to reach a particular goal. So we're going to do this right now, and I'm going to show you something in a second. And I want you to just look at it closely for a minute. Hopefully you can all see it. Yeah, hopefully you can see it. And then I want you to think about which blob on this picture are you most like right now? Which would you like to be if it isn't the same? And then how will you get from one to the other? Okay, so we're just going to look for a minute, and then maybe we'll have a chance for people to just pop up and say what they are. Okay? Oop, talk together. Okay, so 1 minute. Take a look at the blobs. Which one are you most like right now? And where are you trying to get to? And you can talk. Okay. Now I'm going to do something else that we do when we're talking about skills for learning in life, is I'm going to raise my hand. When you're done talking, raise your hand. Tell me that you're ready to come back together. Oh my gosh, it works. It really works when we do that. Okay. I'll share first, just to get everybody ready to share. I looked at this for a fair amount of time earlier this morning, thinking about what I would be, and I decided that I was a 7. The 7 is the one like gripping the tree like this, mouth is turned down a tiny bit. And I was a 7 because I was nervous. I was nervous. This is a big crowd. I don't know most of you, and that makes me nervous. What I wanted to be by the end, or maybe by the end of this little exercise, was a 15, which is like, hey, I'm so glad we're doing this together. This was so fun and interesting to be here. So that's what I wanted to do. What about you? Anybody want to share, pop up? And you'll have to like super shout. I'm looking into the back, into the front, maybe at this table of collaborators right here. Okay, I saw a hand up. Okay, where's number 9? Oh, swinging. Yeah, yeah, totally. Okay, anybody else want to share where they want to be at the end or where they are right now? Okay, I'm ready. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So in a collaborative stance, here with someone you like. Yeah? Excellent. Okay, one more. Maybe on this side of the room. Anybody want to share? Oh, you do? I can't see anything. Okay, I'm ready. Oh, good. Yay. Perfect. Okay, thank you for sharing. So, I have to say, just engaging in that little, relatively short exercise. I mean, I walked up on this stage quite nervous, I have to say, and just sharing it, like I just got it out of my system. And I do feel a lot better. And it was so interesting and fun to hear other people share how they were feeling. So it made a big difference just immediately for me, which is really the power of some of the work that we do in this area, supporting children's skills for learning and life. And so now what we're basically going to do is talk about those skills. What are they specifically? Because it's not always clear. And what is the evidence that we have behind them? So what are skills for learning in life? I want you to do another exercise, which is to just imagine a learning setting. It can be a place where you work, where you are supporting children or adults or youth. And imagine some kind of activity in that setting, like a learning activity, a sports activity, a music activity, an arts activity, any kind of activity, a professional learning activity, an activity like this, sitting in a big room at a table. And you could just put your head inside that setting and inside that specific learning activity. Here's one. It's an early childhood setting, and those children are gathered around, and they're hearing that story, and they are looking at the pictures in that book, and they are hearing the words, and they are in the process of learning to read. Right? That's the learning task that's happening right there. Here's another picture of a group of kids who are having a great time. They're probably getting ready to transition from one activity to the next. Maybe they're lining up. They have to get organized. Here's another example of a group of kids who are working together outside on something. Maybe they're working in a community garden, or they're getting ready to do some sort of sports activity or something. They're working together. Here's another you can imagine. It's kids working together about to do a science experiment. They are in a team, and they're working with a beaker of some interesting fluid. That is a learning task that many kids experience. Here's yet another. A group of adults working together in a professional learning activity. They're organized around a topic, they're sitting together, and they are talking it through. So if you just put your head inside any one of those learning activities and imagine, what does it take? What does it take for those young children to get those words, to connect them to the pictures. What do they have to do to be able to do that? And I'll tell you, it's really 4 basic things. They need to be able to focus their thinking, right? They need to be able to marshal their attention and put it on the task and not be distracted by other things around them, right? So there's a real cognitive component to it. They need to be able to manage their behavior. So if they're wiggling around too much or moving and bumping others and getting distracted by others, they're going to miss that key word that connects that idea to the picture that's in the book, right? They need to have positive relationships with others. They need to feel, I'm just using that early childhood example again, they need to feel really connected to the adult who is reading the book, to the children around them. They need to feel safe and supported and recognized in that place so that they can see the words and connect them to the pictures and learn that academic skill. And then finally, all through it, they need to understand and manage and deal with feelings, the feelings that they're having and the feelings that others are having. Because the feelings, the attention, the behavior, and the relationships are in everything, right? They are always there. They're not things we choose to do, choose not to do. They're part of all of our interactions and all of the things that we, that we do in our regular old life, in our work life, in our play life, and so on. And that, at its core, is what those skills for learning and life are. And you might say, well, great, that's a vague set of 4 things. So I'm going to just give you some more specific and detailed information about, like, what are those skills really? So if I were working in a setting and I wanted to support them, what would I call them? What would I be looking for? What would I be focused on? Okay, so first, there are a set of very basic cognitive skills. There are things, I mentioned some already, there are things like managing and shifting attention, so putting your brain on something and focusing on it and then shifting it from that thing to something else. Controlling impulses, so being able to manage your behavior and your sort of brain impulses to keep your brain focused on something and not drifting to something else. Things like planning, setting up a plan to reach a particular goal, critical thinking, and so on. So there's some really fundamental cognitive skills. There are, of course, emotion skills, so emotion, knowledge, and expression, learning and building over time an emotions vocabulary, being able to understand what emotions you're having at the moment, maybe why, and then read and understand the emotions of others. Behavioral and emotion regulation, more sophisticated things like empathy, so being able to understand and sit with the feelings of others. There's, of course, a whole bunch of social skills, so understanding social cues, so being able to read the nonverbal cues that others are sending. I'm looking and squinting at all of you, trying to read very quickly all of the nonverbal cues you're sending me while I stand up here. So it's, when people are not using language, there's lots of cues that they're sending. Perspective taking, jumping into the shoes of others, cooperation, kindness, conflict resolution, problem solving, and so on. There are some basic mindsets, beliefs about oneself and the world. Can I do it? Can I learn from mistakes? Should I keep at it or should I give up? Character and values, the guideposts that drive and support all of the good behaviors that we engage in, the kinds of civic and professional and intellectual values that shape our whole society. And then finally, characteristics of personality, so sort of our dispositions, how we approach things. Those are the specific skills that sit in this broad domain. A couple of other things about these skills. They develop over time. So children, adults, we don't just come with them fully formed. They grow and change with development. And what that tells us is basically, and this is impossible to read, I'm happy to share this chart with you if anybody wants it. It provides a pretty detailed look at what are the most salient skills that are emerging developmentally at different ages. So what in our work with children and youth should we be focused on when? How can we make our work more efficient and really think about the specific skills that are important at particular times? And so one thing that is quite important about this kind of developmental story is something that we've begun to see in our research about the pandemic. And I think this is going to be resonant with many of your experiences. So if we just zoom in on this chart, a version of this chart that's a little more detailed, and we look in particular at these, let's say, these grade 2 salient skills in that skills for learning and life domain. And what we expect for second graders is that they're becoming more independent, they're spending more time carrying out multi-step complex tasks on their own. That requires that they remember directions, that they make plans, multi-step plans, and they follow through on those plans. So that's sort of what we expect second graders to be working on in general. What we've found in our research, that a child in second grade, let's say, for example, in the 2021-2022 school year, what we've observed and we've heard from many practitioners across the country is that those children were actually working on the skills of a kindergartner because they lost a year and a half or 2 years of those in-person, play-based often experiences that helped them grow those kindergarten skills, those first grade skills, and get them ready for those second grade skills. So what the developmental story tells us is like, how can we see and understand where children are, what they need, and to support them to move along this trajectory? What we've also observed as the years have gone by is that there really is basically a population-wide kind of 2-year developmental lag in these core skills for learning and life. And that when we're working with kids in settings and we see something that seems really odd for what we understand to be expected for a second grader or first grader or third grader or so on, we have to think like kids have been through a great deal and we need to support them maybe back in the trajectory a little bit to get up to speed on these skills. Okay. So we've written a paper about this. It's miniature in this picture, and I'd be happy to share it with anyone. So as we think about like what are the skills, the bottom line is that there are a lot of different things. You know, development is multi-domain, and they're all interrelated to each other. So we really can't support children in only one domain without thinking really carefully about the others. They don't go away. They're just part of what we all are as humans. They're not traits. They grow and develop over time, and we can support them directly with specific strategies and practices, and we're going to get to that in a second. And then, of course, in order to learn these skills, and this is the work that you all are doing so effectively, children need opportunities to really see them. They need adults to be living them and showing them, and they need a chance to practice them. The most effective work is fun, right? It is play-based, it is engaging. That's how children learn and experience these skills. So turning to the evidence, why would we ever focus on these skills? They're, as I said, they're universal and developmental. They're really essential to every learning task that we can think of. So children need these skills to be learning and to be effective participants in any kind of setting. We also know that stress and adversity, and in particular, particularly salient are experiences of the pandemic. We know that stress and adversity really do affect them in particular a lot. And there are lots of strategies and practices and interventions that have been tried that are very effective in offsetting the impact of that stress. And then finally, teaching, any kind of teaching in any kind of setting is going to reach a limit when children struggle in this domain. So doing something really intentional and direct to support them makes a big difference. A lot of the science also suggests that when we support these skills for learning and life, we can see academic gains also, not just gains in those core cognitive, social, emotional, mindset kind of outcomes. Okay, so all of this like high-level knowledge comes from 3 kinds of studies. The first kind of study is a kind where we follow a large sample of folks over many, many years, so like 20 to 30 years. And these kind of studies essentially link things like social competence or self-control in childhood to life outcomes like health, getting into, being in, and staying through college, being physically healthy, being mentally healthy in the future. So the things in life that we really hope for everyone, you can predict those things with childhood levels of self-control, social competence, and so on. And they are stronger predictors than all the stuff in the middle, stronger predictors than many academic outcomes, stronger predictors than many of those sociodemographic factors. So they're really salient and meaningful. When we do something direct, when we try and support them, we find that those kinds of things, programs that are designed to support these skills specifically, we find that they are effective. They make a big difference in boosting these skills and, in many cases, supporting academic functioning as well. There's lots and lots and lots, 50 to 60 randomized control trials alone that tell us that story. And then we have this new science of stress, how it influences the brain, how the brain reacts, and how that cascades into behavior. And a lot of that evidence is being confirmed through experiences in the pandemic. And so we know, as I said before, that these skills are highly vulnerable to those experiences, but that we have strategies and practices that make a difference. Okay, so turning to a new kind of evidence that I think is particularly salient to your context, and that is that strategies and practices and the sort of approaches that support skills for learning and life are very similar. They overlap a great deal with those kind of approaches that we employ in after school. So we put these together, both consider the whole child, both are about partnerships across contexts, both are about providing a safe and positive environment, supporting the development of high-quality relationships, creating developmentally appropriate, really engaging and fun activities, and providing lots of opportunities for skill building. And when we look specifically at after school, there are a number of studies growing all the time that show that we see improvements in all kinds of areas: feelings and attitudes about oneself, positive behavior, school performance, and in particular, fewer behavioral incidents and difficulties. So there's lots of evidence from after school as well. And then, now I'm going to turn to the practice. I'm going to look at the time. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, so what's effective practice? What works? We've looked at programs and strategies and approaches from many different places for over many different years. And we found that basically effective practice boils down into two basic things. One is establishing safe, caring learning settings with effective behavior and classroom management. The place itself has to be experienced by the child and the adults in it as safe, as welcoming, like you belong there, you are welcomed there. The second is teaching. So we often forget that these kinds of skills need direct teaching as well. When my son was little, I would find myself saying things like, pay attention, please pay attention to me. And he would look at me curiously, like, what are you talking about? And I realized that I had to teach him what I meant by that word. Like, what does she mean by that? I just don't know what she's expecting from me. So I had to teach him what I meant by the words I was using with him. Things like respect, complicated word. Kids don't know what it means necessarily, so we have to teach them. So it really takes those two things. When we get into the teaching side of things, it's 4 components. Modeling, so adults are showing what we expect kids to be able to do. Teaching things directly, like teaching about attention, for example. Giving lots of opportunities for play and practice. These skills grow through practice, like everything else. And kids are not always great at it, but they need a chance to try and then try again. And then a lot of language about these skills in the setting. What connects these are relationships at their core. So relationships are really the foundation of the kind of skills and strategies, the supports that build this body of skills, and they connect settings to individual instruction. Okay, so hold on. The second set of things that works, it's inside all of the practice, is play. So when we look at play as a strategy, it has been found across numerous studies to build these core physical, social, emotional, cognitive, and creative skills. And there's a URL there that links you to this site that gives you all of the information you could ever want about play. The thing that's interesting that I was thinking about this morning is that we sometimes assume that play is really all about what children do, but it's actually something that we are all doing all the time. Like, we play video games, we play sports, we play cards, we play board games. Adults are playing too. Adults and children love to play. And play, when we play, it builds those cooperative learning skills, it builds team skills, it builds those core social skills. Like, it's really fundamental when we are playing to building skills that we all have and apply to our entire life. So when we get into learning settings, what we've found in our team, and now I'm turning to the kind of work that we do specifically in this domain, we've noticed that the supports for this body of skills typically look like this. They're kind of programs, you may know some of these, and they get implemented. They're often curriculars, they have like a scope and sequence. They're designed to fit inside school. And because of that, they often look like what schooling is, which is that they can be inflexible, they can be multi-component, they can be complicated, they often have scripted lessons, and they've been found to be effective, but they're not easy to do in every setting. And so in our group, we were thinking, great, these things are great, but we might need something else because these things are hard to do and they are not often implemented well. So we began to think about it something like this, which is that there are a couple of dimensions, and the kinds of strategies and programs that are available to us are kind of up there in that corner, which is that they take a fair amount of resources to do. They take time and they cost money and lots of training and support, and they're relatively inflexible. They are designed to be done exactly as they are designed. And so what we've been thinking is that maybe we need a different approach, which is something that's more strategy-based. Like, we ask the question, could we identify all of the strategies that are common to these programs and pull them out and redesign them as things we could just do anywhere, that are highly portable, highly flexible, highly adaptive. And our hypothesis was that they might be more useful for those who are working in all the different settings where children are. So we've tried to do this. I just described this. What are the common elements? If you look inside some of these programs, what you'll see is that there are the very different looking approaches to building self-control, but at their core, they are all the same thing. They have the same 3 steps. They may look different, but they really have a common approach to supporting children to learn to control themselves. And so we thought, can we take these out and redesign them as something slightly different? And this is the final part. I think I'm on time. And we call them kernels. Many of you in this room have been doing them in partnership with us over the last few years. We designed them to be play-based, like fully situated in play, fun, engaging activities. They really are experience-based, meaning you practice them in the world at times when you might need the skill, and then you learn about how that skill works and might apply to other times in your life. They look like this. They are on cards. There are many different types of things and target many different areas in this big domain of skills for learning and life. This is how these look now. They're literally a card you could pick up with a game on it that you could do at any point. We've designed them over time in partnership with folks from many different places in the US and around the globe, and each time they look different. They do have a core structure. So here's one of the examples of how they look different. This is actually a trifold card that looks slightly different from those I just showed you, but it really has 3 parts. The first part in every single kernel is introducing the skill. Like, what is this thing that we are learning? Why is it important? Why do we need it? When might we use it? What's the game we're going to play to practice this skill? And we play the fun game, and then what happened? What was it like? What was it like to play that game? What did you notice about it? When might you need that particular skill at another time? How could we adapt this game to continue to practice the skill and do it at other times? So we just thought I would show a quick video that shows one of these games in action. This is a video of an educator who's been a partner of ours for a very long time and a group of kids, and they know they're on video, which introduces something slightly artificial, but this will just give you a sense of one of these kernels. I don't think I'm doing anything right now, right? Yeah.
This morning, we are going to start off our day with Cool Kid. Now, the big idea of Cool Kid is that everyone gets a chance to be the cool kid, okay? Each of you will get to be a cool kid. You'll see last week that Laura S. was our cool kid, and when you are the cool kid, we look for all of the amazing things that you do well. We gather all of these compliments at the end of the day or the week, and we notice, we share each other's positive actions and attributes, and then we try to build each other up, and we create a stronger classroom community, right? We want to recognize that each of us has amazing qualities, so that's why everyone gets to be the cool kid. And this week's cool kid is Anthony. So you'll see Anthony's poster up here. Oh, I love that we're clapping for Anthony, great. Before we even read the compliments, and like we do every week, we'll each be writing a compliment for Anthony. Now, everyone's gonna write a compliment, and I'll ask people to share. If you don't wanna share, that's okay. Not everybody has to share out loud. And if you can't think of something in the moment, take a minute. You can always write it in a little bit. But we're all going to put it on Anthony's chart, and that will stay in the classroom for the rest of the summer, okay? So even if you don't want to share out loud, that's okay because Anthony will get to read it later. Who would like to go first? Mason, please come up with your sticky note.
You are so awesome and amazing and helpful. You help people when they are having a hard time.
Awesome. All right, you can put it on the chart.
Anthony, you are very nice and very caring of others.
Good job. Jerome.
Judging by this whole movie thing that we've been doing, you seem to be a cool kid, hence the name. And you seem to be okay with a good mind, a great mind, and a strong brain.
Great. Put it on.
Hey Anthony, I like your personality and you're really helpful and you like to cheer people on and you have a great mindset.
Great job. You can put it on the chart and take a seat. And one more. Anthony, you want to read yours about yourself? All right, come on up.
I am fast. I like to help people when they don't feel good.
Anthony's our cool kid this week. Everyone will have a chance to be cool kid. This will be hung up in the classroom so that Anthony can look at his compliments and you guys can look at his compliments as well as your own because they'll all be up, right, throughout the summer. And I just want to remind you guys that the purpose of Cool Kid isn't to say one person's cooler than the other or anything like that. It's so that we can notice and call out each other's positive qualities, right? And if we do that, then we know our strengths. So Anthony now knows all of his strengths and how he can use them, and he'll use them a little bit more, do you think? Now that you know how awesome you are. And he can have a really strong, cooperative classroom around him, and you guys will benefit from that as well. Okay, so thank you so much, and can we all do an acknowledgement for Anthony? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to just stay there for a second without something else coming on. Okay, ignore this for a second. I just want to say something about Cool Kid. It's not simply about getting compliments, right? It's about providing a routine that allows everybody in the setting to notice. We're all just going to notice what each other are doing, and we're going to notice what's going well. The research tells us that when we notice what's going well, it's way more effective at supporting children's behavior than noticing over and over and over again what's not going well. So Cool Kid is something you could see the pride in all of their faces. Like in that the Cool Kid's face, he was feeling so good about this. It felt great. And one thing we've found about Cool Kid over the years, we've been doing this for 10 or 15 years, this one in particular, is that when we interview children, Some say, my favorite kernel is the cool kid, because I have never heard anyone say something nice to me in school. It is profoundly influential. When we talk to educators working in after school or school settings, they say, oh, the cool kid turns kids around. The children who struggle the most with behavior, the cool kid turns them around. They feel like they've been seen. Everybody is noticing things, and when you really look, every kid, no matter what, does something positive. And this is just a way to lift that up systematically and support those kids. Okay, so our work in Nebraska that is just beginning now, it actually builds on 4 years of work that Laura Stickle, my colleague, has been doing here on these kernels, and it is embedded in a large 4-year federal grant that is about supporting skills for learning in life in the state of Nebraska, ideally all the way across it. So what we heard over the last 4 years was that the kernels materials are useful, they work in many settings, that it helps children with all of the things that they are learning in this big domain. And we also have heard that the ways some of the materials are organized is not quite right for every setting. So part of this project that we're just starting is to redesign them and co-design them in collaboration with our partners in Nebraska so they become very well suited and specific to 21C settings in the state. And so we've just begun that process now. We heard from the focus groups and the collaborative workshops we've been doing that children really do still need these supports. They need them immediately, and that there are lots of things that we can do to adapt the materials so they really fit this setting here. And there are all sorts of other things that we can design to go along with them. That work is happening this year, and then we're gonna start 2 years of implementing them across the state and trying to learn about how they work. So if you're interested in joining us, we would love to have you. And you can talk to Jan, Jolene, Laura, anyone, and we would welcome you into our partnership. So I'm just going to leave you with some key ideas. If you walk away with anything, think about the blobs, the cool kid, and then these key ideas. Just that skills for learning in life that are developed through play, engaging, fun activities, result in high-quality relationships in settings between adults and children. They improve learning outcomes, and they can be social interaction, they can be social and emotional outcomes, and they can be behavioral outcomes, and they can be academic outcomes. And then finally, they make for fun places where children and adults want to be, where they want to come back to day after day. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Oh, here, and here's my email address. Okay, I'm getting off the stage. Okay.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing your expertise on how we can embed critical skills for learning and life into our after-school and summer settings, and even reflect on how they impact our own selves personally, too. We appreciate you coming to Nebraska and speaking to our after-school conference audience. And I will remember the feelings map and Anthony and those particular skills you mentioned, so thank you. Jennifer, are you? Oh, I'm blinded by the light up there.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Jones with Beyond School Bells, and I just wanted to pivot here for a second and draw your attention, I think it's like page 29 that is in your program, and just wanted to let you know of an opportunity for in-person professional development that is launching this fall. And so it's Beyond School Bells in partnership with Nebraska Extension and NDE, like 21st Century. And we really wanted to provide opportunity for in-person professional development in your region of the state. And so If you can see on that map, we have 4 regional hubs, and we're going to be meeting across the state 3 different times this year, and there are the locations and dates on this flyer. And really the focus of our time together, they're going to be morning sessions, is really to look at how we can kind of work on nuts and bolts and like the essentials of running an after school or a summer program, and an opportunity to hear from each other, like different actions that have really worked well, what's not working well, and learn from each other in that. And then really taking a deeper look at like what the role of after school is in developing identity, purpose, and hope for students that are in your program. And then finally wanting to spend some time on how are you developing your program partnerships and sustainability. And so we're going to weave all that into our time together, and we would love for you to attend. There is more information by just using that QR code or going to our website, and you can also register online for the website. But they'll be launching at the end of October, and if you have any questions, you can find any of us with Beyond School Bells or Extension or NDE, but we hope to see you at one of the regional meetings.
And there is a flyer in your program with that QR code and with more information about that opportunity. So thank you, Jennifer. It's exciting. I have just a few end of the lunchtime session announcements for you. I wanted to point out on page 28 in your program that there's important post-conference information. So watch for an email on Monday, this coming Monday, with a link to the conference evaluation. Or if you want to go to page 28 and use the QR code, you can go ahead and scan it to your phone and start filling that out whenever you have some time. But we will email a link to all of you. We would really appreciate your feedback as we plan each year's conference. We always look at the previous year's feedback and consider that in our future plans. Keep track of the sessions that you attend. A lot of you want to have a certificate of participation that will be available on the conference website, and then you'll be able to turn that in to whoever you need to turn it into to get the credit for participating today. We also wanted to let you know that any streamed session, as well as these keynote sessions, were recorded, and the recordings will be available on the conference website in about 2 weeks. And if somebody in your program couldn't attend the conference today, it might be something that you could watch together for a staff PD session. One more announcement, well, I guess I have a couple more. At the conclusion of the workshop at 4 o'clock, that's when we will draw for prizes. You all have a red ticket in your name badge, so be there, and we'll have some snacks, and all that will happen in the pre-function area. Table 19 is going to remain open for a little bit longer. Be sure and drop a card in the fishbowl on table 19 if you want to be involved in the drawing, considered in the drawing to win a board game. So if you haven't visited the table, they're going to stay set up for just a little bit longer. Take one of your business cards and make sure you leave it there to draw. Hopefully they would draw your name then to win one of those fabulous games. And then this is the last announcement. We want you to be sure and save the date for our next Get Connected Nebraska After School Conference, which will be held in Kearney. We always rotate between Omaha and Kearney each year. It will be at the Eunice Center, and it's on September 27th, so we hope to see you there. So we hope you had a great morning and lunch, and enjoy your afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to go ahead and head to breakout 3, and that starts at 2 o'clock. So thank you very much.
Treat people with kindness. Find a place to